Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So of course, in true form, Raggedy Rachel has committed plagiarism yet again. Yes, Meghan has committed extreme forms of plagiarism, and it's quite ironic that she has packaged herself as a feminist and one who supports businesses founded by females, by women. She also brands herself as a female founder, but it's quite apparent that she doesn't have a single original idea in her brain. So this writer has come forward and she essentially has branded Meghan as a low-down copycat thief. Her name is MEL ELLiOT, and this is a breaking story as of today in The Sun, documenting the way in which Meghan doesn't really have the authenticity and she doesn't have the true comradeship that she proposes she has amongst women. She's done nothing, if you think about it, since being in the public eye, but attack many women, in my personal opinion. The big blow up with Sophie, Dr. Chandaka, the blow up with our beloved Princess Catherine, the blow up with her sister Samantha Markle in the public eye, her disrespect to the Queen. And they're not the only members on her victim list. It has also been reported that she was extremely angry with Gayle King for not getting her on that flight to space with Katy Perry. And how delusional is this lady? So let's get into this story. Meghan Markle plunged into another copycat row as writers spot striking similarities between her book and her Netflix show. So we know that Harry and Meghan had made quite a few pledges once they got their dirty little clutches on this $100 million deal that they signed with Netflix, and they had to come up with unique ideas. Of course, they don't have unique ideas between them. And one of Meghan's proposals to fulfill her Netflix contract was to put together a child animation series or a children's animation series titled around a kid called Pearl. Now, essentially, this writer has leaked that this was her original idea, which she had debuted in 2014, years and years before Meghan came on the scene and decided to put together this production. So I'm going to read it to you as is and then give more of my private personal thoughts. Meghan Markle was embroiled in another plagiarism row after a British author alleged striking similarities between the royals' proposed kids' TV show and her own work. And it's interesting that she's always stealing ideas from the UK. She's basically attempted to rip off the Highgrove brand from the royal firm, which I can attest to being remarkably a lot more tastier and better. Real jam preserves is what everybody actually really likes, but of course, Meghan not really having much talent or ingenuity or any real connection with the public has come up with a droopy, runny, snotty spread. I digress. The Duchess of Sussex, 43, was listed as an executive producer alongside Sir Elton John's husband, David Furnish, on a Netflix animated Pearl series, which was announced back in July 2021. The show was a key title in the $100 million deal Meghan and Prince Harry struck with the streaming service after stepping down as working royals. It was described as telling the story of a young girl as she learns to step into her power and finds inspiration from influential women throughout history. However, it was eventually axed less than a year later, and Meghan quickly binned any mention of it from her production company Archewell's website. The writer and illustrator Mel Elliott from Hastings claims that she sent a legal letter to both the non-profit company and the streaming service alleging possible infringement of copyright in relation to her own character, Pearl Power. And of course, it doesn't take a whiz kid to see the way in which this Raggedy Rachel blatantly ripped off this lady's concept and was prepared to completely plagiarize and use it as her own for a quick buck. Does this woman have any ingenuity, any unique ideas? Does she have any real raw talent? We know that she wasn't able to snab a Golden Globe or a Oscar in her days of acting. All she could really do was network and influence people, social climb, and get herself into the hotspots like the Soho House in order to meet elite gentlemen. But it seems as though that's as far as her repertoire extends. Let's carry on with the story. The letter sent soon after the announcement of the series said the two works' similarities appear to be too many and too striking to be just a mere coincidence. It added there is a risk that the project may be an infringement of intellectual property rights. When she then got no response, the 51-year-old also sent two personal letters to Archwell in October 2021 and February in 2022 asking for formal updates. By the time Pearl was announced, Miss Elliot had already published 3 Pearl Power books, starting in 2014. It comes, of course, amid Pamela Anderson's fans accusing Meghan of copying her cooking with Love show with her own Netflix cookery program, with Love Meghan, released last month. And in February, the mayoress of Porres in Mallorca complained the logo for the Duchess's lifestyle brand as ever resembled her town's historic coat of arms. And I've looked at it, you've seen it, we've all seen it, and it's exactly the same. But what this mayor did say is that because they are a small town, they do not have the funds to challenge someone like the Duchess of Sus legally in the courts, and they will not be pursuing it. But it still is a blatant ripoff and copy of their logo. And you just think to yourself, why? Why is she lacking such intellect to do this in such a public light? This makes her look bad. It makes her look bad as a woman. It makes her look bad as a female founder. It makes her look bad as a person in general. She fails to do research. She didn't even research the trademarking for American Riviera Orchid. I think that was the original inception and planned name of her food brand. She didn't research that, so that fell through. And then, of course, she had to change the names as ever, which was a ripoff from another brand in New York City, which they mention in this article. The Sun previously compiled a list of 7 times, in fact, that Meghan had been accused of being a copycat. Miss Elliot told the Mail on Sunday Meghan is a feminist who sticks up for other women. So I was disappointed and confused to see how similar Netflix's proposed show Pearl was to my own Pearl Power, who had been created 7 years earlier. Of course, I can't know if anyone on her team had seen it and been inspired by it, but the similarities were too great for me to then ignore. The world of arts and media are very, very competitive, and I'm afraid it's quite common for powerful people to rip off the work of less well known creatives. Although I'm not saying that's what has happened here. She added that what saddened her the most was having brought the possible issue to the attention of Netflix and Archwell. My objection was never formally acknowledged. And it's in true Duchess of Sus fashion, isn't it? Anyone who's beneath her, doesn't serve her, has no use for her, simply doesn't get a response. Even our beloved dear Dr Sophie Sentebale hasn't been formally acknowledged by Meghan because it doesn't serve her, does it? It makes her look bad, but she should get a response. And she had all of this energy to rip apart the royal firm and run to Oprah and sit there and give us that diabolical interview that nobody asked for, trashing our beloved Catherine, but she now is not acknowledging the black woman who she really has wronged. Because, of course, she thinks she's better than her, she's above her, and she just doesn't need to acknowledge her formally. And this lady, poor Mrs. Mel Elliott, has clearly experienced this same treatment. The third entry into the Pearl Power series, released in 2016, became a major success and was translated into multiple languages. The Sun has approached Meghan's reps for a comment, and of course, they have refused to acknowledge it. 7 times that Meghan Markle faced copycat claims. The As Ever brand, of course, that's something that she plagiarized. She's also been accused of copying Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, and she's also been accused of plagiarizing Pamela Anderson's cooking show. And so I think I'm going to stop there because I think I've made my point quite clear. But Meghan is not unique. She doesn't have any ingenuity or creativity. And in my personal opinion, I've been pondering on the brand As Ever and her raspberry quote unquote spread. And I asked myself the other day, why didn't she just brand it as tangy and tart? Because it's clearly not sweet. Even the sugars are choking on it because there is simply no sugar in it. And with all that being said, guys, I'll be back with another video. Bye.